Welcome to the Holidays to Switzerland podcast. If you're planning a trip to Switzerland, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Carolyn Schonnefinger, the founder of HolidaysToSwitzerland.com. And in each episode, my expert guests and I share practical tips to help you plan your dream trip to Switzerland. You'll get helpful advice about travelling around Switzerland and hear about the most popular destinations, as well as some hidden gems. And we'll introduce you to plenty of wonderful experiences that you can enjoy as part of your Swiss vacation. Each episode is packed with expert tips, itinerary ideas, and inspiration to help make your Swiss vacation planning easy. So let's dive in. Grüezi, hi there. Welcome to this week's episode. Planning a trip to Switzerland and deciding what to see and do can be difficult enough when it's just you and your partner or you and a friend travelling. But when you are also travelling with children and grandparents, there are even more things to take into consideration. How will you plan your daily activities so that every member of the family, regardless of their age, is kept entertained and happy? Today's guest, Samantha Russell, was faced with that dilemma when planning her recent trip to Switzerland. But she found the perfect balance for a vacation that everyone loved. In this episode, Samantha shares her itinerary and the activities and excursions that her extended family enjoyed on their trip. And she has lots of tips that are relevant whether you are travelling with or without a family group or multiple generations. So let's meet Samantha. Good morning or, well, good evening for you, Samantha. Thanks so much for coming onto the podcast. Would you like to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and tell us how you came to be visiting Switzerland recently?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. I live in Pennsylvania. So yes, it's good evening here, Pennsylvania in the United States. And I actually visited Switzerland for the first time a little over a year ago with my 3 children. And a little bit of backstory, my late husband, Ryan, and I had planned to do this really cool trip to Switzerland. And we were going to do all these hikes and we mapped it all out. And I was pregnant with our 3rd son, Teddy, at the time. And we kept saying, like, once Teddy's born, I'm back in shape, we'll go. And then my husband tragically was diagnosed with brain cancer and ended up passing away. This October will be 2 years. And so right after he passed away, it was a really long winter. Obviously, we were so sad and horrible. And I just really was going through every message with him and everything. And I found all these itineraries that him and I had created and this specific one about hiking in Switzerland. And I just thought, I need to do this. And at the time, the little boy that I had been pregnant with when he had gotten sick was now 2. And I thought, I can do it. So I asked my mom and dad if they would come with me. They said yes. And so I spent actually most of that winter listening to a lot of your podcast episodes and planning this trip. And it was like therapy for me. And we went last summer for the first time and we loved it so much. We instantly knew we needed to come back. So we just came back. My kids are now 3, 7, and the oldest just turned 10 on this trip. And we went back again and spent about 10 days in Switzerland.
Amazing. Well, yeah, what a tragedy. But I guess your trip to Switzerland, that really gave you that connection to Ryan because, as you said, you and he had planned these itineraries and what you were going to do. I'm so sorry to hear about that.
Thank you. I'm sure you've heard other people say this, or maybe you felt it. There is something very magical about being in the Alps and looking at those mountains. You know, we stayed in Wengen both times and it's like me and my kids would say, you know, we felt like we never were closer to the universe or heaven or whatever it is you want to call it. So it definitely has like a healing property for me. And I think I'm very drawn to the Alps in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so did your parents go with you again on this trip? I can imagine that traveling with 3 busy kids can be difficult at times when you're traveling.
Yes, thankfully, I think they were thrilled to come again. So my mom and dad, my mom is in her late 60s, my dad's in his early 70s. And then actually I have 2 sisters that came with me on this trip as well. So neither of them are married or have any children of their own. And they were delighted to get to be the fun ants and come along on the trip. So we had a full crew of varying ages.
Yeah, great. And for your sisters, was it their first time in Switzerland?
It was. So I was so excited to show them why we had fallen in love with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so obviously there was quite a few of you. How did you travel around Switzerland?
We 100% did trains this time, which was different. The first time we went, we had rented a car. And this time we did trains the whole time. And I think I'd been a little intimidated the first time about doing the trains completely. You know, Americans were also car dependent, but it worked out lovely. We took trains the whole time and we didn't have any issues at all. So I was glad we had packed light. That made a difference.
Yeah, good. And so did you buy a rail pass or did you just buy your tickets as you went along, to get from each one place to another?
So actually, I felt really overwhelmed with what to do. And so we got a half fare card. Each adult got a half fare card. And then for the kids, they ended up being free.
Okay, fantastic. All right. So can you just give us a bit of an overview of your itinerary, where you stayed, and then we'll go back and get into it in a bit more detail?
Yes. So I'm just going to pull up. We actually have a blog and I've listed it on the blog. So it makes it easy for me to remember. So we did 5 nights in Wengen, 2 nights in Lucerne, and 3 nights in Lugano.
Okay. So you've been in central Switzerland and then down into the Italian-speaking region. Which of these places had you been to on your previous trip?
So we had been in the same regions on the previous trip. I have been to Lugano before by myself without my children. And that was my parents' first time there as well. And it was everybody's first time being doing Mount Rigi and some of those things in Lucerne. Because the last time we had been in Lucerne, we just spent the night at a hotel after a late flight in. And so we didn't see much or do much. So even though we technically had been in the area, it felt like the first time.
Okay, so I'm guessing because you're trying to cater for lots of different age groups to keep everyone entertained, you probably had to plan your activities pretty, carefully so that everyone was sort of kept happy all the time. So what sort of things did you choose to do that was suitable for all ages?
Yes. So we really focused, we all have such a love of the outdoors. And so whenever we can pair a time where we're hiking and doing something active with, a playground where the kids are going to love it, or choose a hike where there's interactive elements for the kids, that's always a win for everyone. My dad loves a good beer. So if at the end of the hike, he can sit at a mountain hut and have a beer, that was great. And one of the things that was so cool, we were there right around, I think August 1st is they call it Switzerland's birthday.
Swiss National Day, yeah.
Swiss National Day. So there was a lot of really fun cultural events and activities at the different places we were. So, the day we were at Mount Rigi, for instance, in the Lucerne area, we stayed in Witznau, which was all new to me, but we stayed at this really cool hotel called the Neurocampus Hotel. And it was great for families because the rooms, they were originally built to be apartments and then they turned them into a hotel. So each of the rooms had a living space, a little kitchenette, and then 2 rooms and balconies overlooking the lake. And then if you stay in Witznau, there is the train, the cogwheel train, you can take up to Mount Rigi right there in the middle of the square. And so that's what we did. We took the train up to Mount Rigi and we spent the entire day up there, and they had hiking trails. Obviously, there's a playground, there's different stops along as you come down. And we were able at, I think it's called Rigi Kultbad, like the midway point. I'm probably butchering the name, but they had Alphorn players, they had traditional dancers, they had cheese and chocolate tastings. So it just made for such a magical day to, take the train all the way to the top of the summit, get all those views, and then make our way down there. We did the playground, the traditional festival, I guess was what they called it. So it was a lovely, lovely day and a great place to stay right there on the lake.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so let's maybe start with Wengen. That was your first destination in Switzerland, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, because I know you spent a bit of time there hiking and visiting playgrounds. So maybe you could talk through the day excursions that you did so our listeners can get a bit of an idea of what they can realistically achieve in a day, especially if they're traveling with children.
Yeah, that's such a good question. We love staying in Wengen for that reason, that kind of gives you a head start on the day in a way because you're already up there in the mountains. I know some people will choose to stay in, for instance, Interlaken, and that's great. But for us, we wanted to already be up in the mountains just to save some of that travel time with kids. And so we stayed there. And the first excursion that we did was we took the cable car up to Mannlichen. I believe is how you say it. And we got to the top, it has the most amazing views. And then we walked, I think it's about a kilometer walk, pretty steep. So everybody feels accomplished by the time they get to the top, to the royal viewpoint there at the top. And you can just see, it's really like a 360-degree view. You have views of the Eiger and the famous three mountains, the lakes down below. You can get the most amazing pictures, but it's not that strenuous of a hike. So we did that. And we walked back down to where the cable car is. And there's a really fun restaurant and a very famous playground that people probably have seen on social media. I think it's called the Herdsman's Playground, but this big, massive cow. And so my kids had the best time doing that. And then after we had some lunch, we took, I think it's called the Lisolette Trail. So it's a trail designed to entertain kids. It's a family-themed trail, and it's mostly a descent. So you're not going uphill, but they have these little interactive stations, and you get a little map. And at each station, there's different activities that you do. So you might ring, these alpine cowbells, or use these water squirters to give the wooden ducks a refreshing bout of water. And then there's like a punch card that you get punched or stamped at each station. So my kids adored it. It made the hike so much fun. And, it keeps everybody entertained. And even my parents, my dad had knee surgery not that long ago. Even he could do the descent hike without a problem.
Yeah. Okay, great. So where did you end up when you finished that hike? Was it at the midway station back down towards Grindelwald?
Yes. And we met a young couple, and they were going to take the lifts down all the way to Grindelwald. And they, were going to keep going. For us, that was a lot already to do in a day. So we took them back up to the top and then let the kids play the playground a little bit longer, and then took the cable car back down into Wengen. So that was like a big chunk of time for us. I think it took us maybe 5 or 6 hours with all the playground time and the lunch time and everything. And then we went back and gave the kids some downtime, and then spent the evening in town doing some of the marble runs that they have there, which the kids also absolutely love.
Yeah, great. Okay. So what about the next day?
So then the next day was a big day for us because my son, it was in honor of his 10th birthday. The only thing he wanted to do is go paragliding. So we had arranged through Airtime Paragliding, which is based in Lucerne, to do that. And so we were all a ball of nerves. And what I was shocked when I found out that you actually can be as young as like 5 and go paragliding. There's really not, very young children can do it because you're tandem with a guide who knows exactly what they're doing. And they were great. So we sort of divided and conquered. My mom and my one sister stayed with my youngest, who's just 3, and they kind of had a lazy morning, and then they went and visited the bunnies and Wengen and did all that. And then my dad, me, my other sister, and my son took the train down to Lauterbrunnen. And then we made our way to the cable car at the back of the valley. And we then went up and paraglided off of the edge of the cliff there in Lucerne, which is having a hard time describing it because I was terrified, but it was truly one of the most amazing things.
Wow. Yeah, you're very brave. But I guess if your 10-year-old son wants to do it, you've got to show him how brave you are too.
Exactly. We all have a saying in our family that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you're terrified or scared, but you do it anyway. And so I was trying to live that for him.
Great. And your dad did it as well?
No, he stayed down and watched us come in and took some videos and things. And then the rest of the family met us, and we went to, I think it's Staubach. I'm going to say wrong.
Staubach Falls. Yeah.
Staubach. So we were all, riding high on that, and we went over then. And that day it was very busy down there. So you kind of almost had to queue up to see the waterfall. But that waterfall, it's this beautiful waterfall that's just plummeting into the valley. And I actually read it's one of the tallest free-falling waterfalls in Europe. And then you're able to go into the rock underneath it. So because my son is 3, you need to be at least 4 to do the other waterfall at the end of the valley, which is Trommelbach Falls. And so we did this one instead. And this one was free, and that one has a charge. So that also was a win-win.
Great. Okay. So did that take the whole day for you, or did you do something else? Yeah.
It took most of it. We did end by renting bikes through Boden, I believe is how you say, bike rental right there in Lauterbrunnen. And we did a little bike ride down the valley and back, which was also so fun because everyone could do it. They even have electric bikes. So we did the waterfall, the bikes, and then made our way back up.
And did I read somewhere that you also went to Pfingsteg from Grindelwald?
Yes. So another day we took the train down and then made our way into Grindelwald. And when we got to Grindelwald, we were kind of debating what to do. You know, you read so much about Grindelwald first and all the activities there, but you also read about how bad the lines are. And so since my son, who's sort of the daredevil, had gotten a lot of that excitement out with paragliding, I think this would be a better option, especially because all the ages, because there's a mountain coaster there that everyone could ride. And they have something called a fly line there, which is, again, everybody could do it. You only had to be, I believe, 4 to do that one, which I knew my littlest wouldn't want to do anyways. So we had so much fun. You can buy a pass and get multiple rides on both the mountain coaster and the fly line. And there were no lines at all. We just were able to ride over and over. And they have the sweetest little mountain restaurant up there and a playground with a bounce house. So we spent the good part of a day there. And then we again divided up. And some of us did a hike, a really, really great hike right there from the top of the mountain down to Grindelwald Glacier Gorge. It said it was supposed to be 60 minutes. It took us about 90 because we stopped for a lot of pictures and videos because it was so beautiful. And then the other group, the 7-year-old, the 3-year-old, and my dad and my sister, they took the cable car back down and then took the bus and met us at Grindelwald Gorge. So again, we did a lot of that where we did stuff together and then we would divide up based on people's abilities.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of it, isn't it? When you're traveling with different age groups, that you can do that. And the public transport makes it so easy as well, that there's usually a bus or a cable car that can get you to the end of a trail if you're meeting up with someone who's walking.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. It was so perfect because, you know, they weren't in a rush. They let the kids play the playground a little longer while we started the hike. And that hike was, I thought for sure we would see a lot more families on it, but we didn't. And it was so wonderful. And I don't think as many people know about it. I hadn't read anything about it. But if you're wanting to visit, do the mountain coaster and the fly line and then pair it with the Glacier Gorge, I think it's such a great option to hike down that way.
Yeah, I remember years ago when we visited there when our children were small, I still had this thing about cable cars. I'm not that fond of heights, and it's only in the last few years that I've got over myself and now go in cable cars. But my kids wanted to go up to Pfingsteg, and I said, well, there's no way we're going in the cable car. So we walked up, and it nearly killed us, and they weren't happy. But at the top, at the time, there was that mountain coaster, so that was a nice reward for them.
I was always like you. And you know, it is so true. The more you do it, the more you trust it. And it starts to become, okay, you don't like it, but it's not as scary, the cable car rides.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So that was then basically your time when you were based in Wengen?
The only other thing we did that I didn't mention was we did do a day where we just went up to Muren and, you know, walked through the sweet alpine village and took the funicular up to Almendubel's playground. And there's some hiking paths up there. And again, it was so great because, you know, you can take lots of public transportation, which is so much of the fun. And then there's so many varieties of hikes once you're up there. We didn't do a very strenuous hike. We just did this little flower trail. And I could sit up there all day and look at those mountains with that view. So it's the other side of the valley, and it gives you a completely different perspective. And I just think Muren is such a quaint alpine village. You could spend all day there. So that was the only other thing we did. And my kids loved that playground as well because it was a hot day and they have a water feature where you can run through and you don't know when it's going to squirt you. It's like a water maze. So they really enjoyed that.
Okay. Well, that's great. So from there you moved on to Lucerne.
Yes.
And then, so from there you did the excursion to Mount Rigi that you mentioned earlier. Was there anything else that you did whilst you're in Lucerne?
The other day that we were there, the weather was not as good. So we weren't really sure what we were going to do. Should we do the Swiss Transport Museum? And we thought, you know what, we're going to get out our raincoats and give it a whirl because everybody really wanted to see Old Town Lucerne and we really wanted to do a boat ride. So we got a bus to Vegas from Witznau, quick bus ride. And then we got on the boat there and the boat took us to downtown Lucerne. And then we just went to this adorable chocolate shop right there in the center of town. It has a wall. If you've been to Lucerne, I'm sure you've seen it, where the chocolate runs down the back of the wall. And we all spent so much time picking out chocolates and tasting them. And then we sat down and tried all the different chocolates together. And then we wandered the town some more and looked at all of the buildings that were painted with these beautiful murals. We visited a church that was there in the center of town. So we really just paired the boat and walking the lakeside promenade and going into the town as the most of the day. And then we took the boat back and really enjoyed a lovely dinner in Vegas before we then took the bus back again. So again, with a group that big, it was so lovely. Like we didn't have to pre-book any transportation in advance or anything, and was really easy to figure out. I was so pleasantly surprised.
Oh, that's good. And there's so much to see in Lucerne as well. I mean, it's not a big city, but especially by American or Australian standards, but there's certainly a lot to see.
Oh, yes. For a day, you can easily spend a full day. I'm sure longer, but for us, it was perfect.
Yeah, good. So then you went on to Lugano. So did you need to go back into Lucerne to get the train to Lugano?
Yes, exactly. And it was an easy train ride. It was no problem at all. You know, there's certain parts of it that are really pretty. And then we arrived in Lugano, and it was so funny. It was like stepping into another world. The weather was completely different from the rainy time we had in Lucerne. And it really felt like you're stepping into Italy in a way, because we had done Lake Como the previous summer as part of our trip. And my mom and dad kept saying, I can't believe this is Switzerland. Like it feels like we're in Italy in a lot of ways. So we were there. We basically had 2 full days then in Lugano.
Okay, so I think you might have done a mountain excursion whilst you were there too. So can you tell us about that?
Yes. So right behind our hotel where we were staying, there was the funicular that you could take up to Mount St. Salvatore. And we took the funicular up to the top. And again, that's great for all ages and abilities. And we took the very first ride of the day up there. We wanted to get a head start. And when we arrived, we had coffee and croissants in the little restaurant. And then they actually have these pictures and storyboards everywhere that tells the story, this fable basically about this mountain man, that these 2 children were scared of these peasant children and this witch. And my 3-year-old especially was so into it. And he wanted to go look for this creature that they said lived on this mountain. So we spent a lot of time reading all these boards, and then we made our way up to the top, very, very top first, to the old church that's up there, where you have this amazing, amazing 360 view of the entire lake below and the city. So we took some pictures up there. We visited the church, and then we came back down, and again, we split up. So the youngest little one stayed with grandma and grandpa, and the rest of us, including the 7 and 9-year-old, departed for a hike. So all of the hikes leave from right behind the restaurant. So it makes it really easy, and they're well marked. And we hiked down the mountain all the way down to the lake and had so much fun because it goes through a lot of little villages that are like these little, feel like Italian villages. And you literally, the hikes go right through them. So we would stop and talk to the people living there, or get a drink of water, get a pastry. And it just made for such a fun hike because it wasn't just like you were in the woods, you know, you were experiencing all these different towns along the way.
So was it very hot when you did that, or was it just like pleasant for hiking? Because I know in Ticino, where Lugano is, it's usually pretty hot in the summer months.
Yes. Because we left early enough, it wasn't too bad, but it was definitely warm. We were sweaty by the end, and we were originally going to go all the way to Morcote, which it said was about, I think, just under 3 hours. But my 7-year-old, about 15 minutes in, started asking when the hike was going to be over. And so I thought that might be too much for her. So we pivoted and we went to Malede instead, which was, again, it said it should be about an hour. It took us maybe an hour and 45 minutes. So we did stop and spend some time in the little villages and take pictures and things like that. But it was a decent sized hike for us.
Okay, good. All right. So all of that pretty much took up that one day for you?
Yes, exactly. We went back and swam most of the afternoon, went to a really great dinner, explored the cute little town. And they have like an old town piazza with a little carousel that my youngest wanted to ride over and over and over again. And my older 2, they were so enthralled by the massive McDonald's right on the promenade. They had to get ice cream cones from. So yeah, that was most of the day.
Okay. All right. So what about the next day?
So the next day, I had read about this fishing village that you could go to, Gondria. We had a leisurely morning that morning, like just coffee and croissants and relax. And then about maybe around noon or so, we caught the boat from Lugano and we took it to Gondria. And Gondria is this fisherman's village that it's like stepping back in time there. It's just so, so, so sweet. The one mistake we did make, though, was we knew after we visited this village that we were going to walk this path. We had brought our bathing suits. So I had read how you could take the boat there and have lunch and then walk this path of the olive trees, it's called, which sounded so magical and wonderful. And then it will take you to this Lido that you can pay a few dollars and spend the afternoon swimming. So I thought that's perfect. But because my 7-year-old had kind of had a problem with the hike the day before, I was like, I'm going to bring the double stroller. The 3-year-old's definitely not going to walk that far. Well, it's all stairs in Gondria and very, very narrow alleys. So that's the only thing. If you are going to do this, do not bring a stroller, bring a backpack, hiking backpack of some sort instead, because it is not easy to, or maybe a collapsible stroller, but it's not easy to have a stroller there.
Yeah, as you said, some of the alleyways are very narrow and there are lots of steps on that trail. I've done that myself and definitely not stroller friendly.
Yeah, it was funny. But I mean, that's why I work out. It was no problem. I could carry it, but I just had to wait for people to clear the path. So one of the things that I was really impressed by in Lugano in general was we had a pretty big group and we didn't make any reservations in advance. And we always were able to find a place to eat. And we were there the beginning of August, so like high season. So I thought that was very interesting and unique. We hadn't always had that experience. And I just wanted to mention that in case someone's going with a large group to not be discouraged. Like you have to have everything plotted out. What we did was just eat at sort of different times. So that day we had a late lunch and then we made our way again along this path. And then we ended up at the Lido San Domenico, I believe is how you say it. And we spent all afternoon there. It's not a zero entry beach by any means. So if you do have young kids, you want them to know how to swim or you'll have to hold them. But there is a great diving board you can jump off of. And then you basically swim to this platform in the middle of the lake. And so we just did that all afternoon. They have a little restaurant there, a snack bar. It was so magical. And then we walked back into Lugano. So another long day again, but it was great for everybody. Everybody had something that they could do that they liked.
Yeah. Oh, good. And was that the end, right at the end of your trip then? Did you then fly out of Milan?
Exactly. So we took the train to Milan the next day.
So what do you think were the highlights for each generation that joined you on your trip? What did your kids like the most?
The youngest two for sure loved just the playgrounds, going to these playgrounds. They were so massive and different from being at home, and these views and the interactive elements. I think they would both say that was the highlight. My 10-year-old loved all of like the thrill stuff. So he loved jumping on the net over the glacier gorge with the water running underneath and loved paragliding, the mountain coaster. For me, it was the hikes. I mean, I can't get enough of these hikes and I'm hoping my children are growing to love it as well. And then my dad, he loved that he didn't have to work hard. He could take a funicular or cable car and end up at these amazing views that, normally you'd think you'd have to hike to get to, and have these incredible views no matter where we were. So he loved that the most. And my mom and sisters, I think they all really loved just the old towns and some of the quaint villages, Old Town Lucerne. They really loved like the history and the culture side of it.
Well, there's certainly something for everyone, that's for sure. Do you have any tips that you would like to give to our listeners who are perhaps planning a multi-generation trip, or even just, like mum and dad taking their kids to Switzerland?
Yeah, I think, before you go, it can feel really overwhelming. So I did spend a lot of time listening to this podcast, reading blog posts from other people who had gone, watching videos of hikes. I think one of the things to note is that if somebody is an avid hiker and they read a sign and it says it takes 60 minutes just to be prepared with your little kids and walking and stopping, it can take a lot longer. And if you do want to hike with your children, get them started before you leave for the trip. So doing hikes at home, or even if you don't live in a place that's got mountains or anything, walking the neighborhood, keeping them on their feet for longer periods of time and not expecting them to just show up in Switzerland and be able to hike for 60 minutes. We also would always bring like little marshmallows or something, and every like 20 or 30 minutes, everybody would get one, a little, pop of sugar to keep you going. So, just having a plan. And I think when it comes to grandparents and, having multi-generation, asking everybody, what are you most excited to see or do? And trying to make it so that every day, everyone's checking off at least one thing. So it might not be that the whole day is exactly what you want to do, but that somewhere in there is going to be your turn.
Yeah, great advice. So is there any plans for returning to Switzerland?
We already booked our stay for next year.
Oh,
yes, we truly love it. And I think it's just something so, like I said, so magical for us about the Alps, especially. So we booked our Wengen apartment because I was sharing where we were staying on my Instagram page, and all these people started booking it. And I got so scared. I was like, I better hurry up and book it before it gets completely taken.
Oh, well, it's always good to have a trip to Switzerland booked, that's for sure.
Yes.
Now, talking about that Instagram page, if people want to follow along with you and look at what you posted about your recent trip and your next trip, where can they follow you?
Yeah, so the Instagram page is at Jolly Good Travel, and then we have a blog, jollygoodtravel.com, and we just posted all about our Switzerland itinerary there as well. So both of those would have lots of information.
Fantastic. Well, I'll include those links in the show notes so that if anyone just missed that, they can click on through and follow all your travel adventures and get all your tips as well. Thank you so much, Samantha, for sharing your travel adventures with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Wonderful. Thank you. Samantha and her family have obviously fallen in love with Switzerland. And who can blame them? It's such a stunning country that offers something for everyone, regardless of age. I'm so happy to hear that they have already started making reservations for their next trip. I'll include the links to Samantha's Instagram page and blog in the show notes for this episode, along with links to my articles about the Swiss Half Fare Card and how to choose the best Swiss Rail Pass for your trip. You can also get a copy of my free Swiss Rail Pass cheat sheet and find out more about my Switzerland Rail Pass comparison calculator in the show notes too. Those show notes are at holidaystoswitzerland.com/episode 156. In next week's episode, we'll be learning about the gorgeous boutique towns around Lake Lucerne. I hope you can join me then. Until then, tschüss!